We go. Okay. All right. So, good morning, Kevin. Do you mind introducing yourself to everyone who's not watching now, but will hopefully see this later?
Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Snyder, and I'm an estate planning and elder law planning attorney. And my team and I help people plan to protect what matters most for when life happens, so that their families, their savings, and their dignity can be protected. And today we're going to be focusing on a topic that has been in the news a lot in the past 6, 7 months and ongoing and on the forefront of many people's brains, and that is Proposition 19. So thank you, Jessica, for having me on to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thanks so much for doing this with me. And for anybody who maybe this is the first time seeing my videos, my name is Jessica Swarbrick. I'm a real estate agent here in Manhattan Beach for Strandhill Christie's International. And I like to team up with other people just to bring you guys content that's broader than just maybe buying or selling or investing. And so that's what me and Kevin are doing today, is going over Prop 19. And we're going to kind of do an overview and then break this down because it does affect people differently. So Kevin, I'll let you take it away.
That's right, Jessica. Thank you. It does affect people differently. And how we explain it to our clients is that Prop 19 has a good side and a bad side to it. And who you are and how you're situated, Prop 19 might be helpful or it might be harmful for your family. So the bad part of Prop 19 has been discussed a lot in the news and in the papers. And just to recap what that is that Proposition 19 is saying that you no longer can transfer your real property, your real estate, down to your children or potentially grandchildren without incurring a reassessment of your property tax. So the old law was that you can leave a home or any type of real estate, commercial, industrial, second home, vacation home, apartment complex, what have you, to your children, and they can inherit it without getting a bump up in their property tax. That law has changed, and now, unfortunately, children and potentially grandparents who are leaving to grandchildren, those grandchildren or children will experience what's called a reassessment. And the reassessment can be significant because the calculus of how they figure that out, what the new property tax base will be, is that the county tax assessor's office will take the fair market value of the property and multiply that by, generally on average, it's about 1%. Sometimes it's a little bit over 1% when you have different municipalities adding on other types of costs and things. We use a 1.1% average to assist clients in figuring out what that tax might be. So if you have a property, for example, that you've owned for many years and you purchased it, let's say 20 years ago, your property tax is based off of that original purchase price that you had. And it can be increased for improvements that you may have done on the property, or annually up to no more than 2%. So generally, your property tax is going to be a lot lower than, say, your neighbor who may have purchased a home more recently. And so the goal, and it has been the goal for many, many years, it was to pass down real estate to children without triggering a reassessment, because the increase in property tax could be thousands and thousands of dollars a year. And we have clients when you factor it in, children inheriting and owning the property for about 10 years, you're easily talking about tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars of property tax.
Right.
So
Which
the bad part of Prop 19
you quickly, just to give an example. Sorry to interrupt, Kevin, but just so that people kind of get the example, especially here in the beach cities, this was not the town it was 20, 30 years ago. So people were buying beach cottages for anywhere from 200 to 400,000. And now those properties, people bought properties on a walk street for 400,000, and now they're selling for land value for 3 million. And the house right next door might be 7 million. So like Kevin's saying, these kids who are now inheriting a property that their parents bought for 400,000 and now it's worth 3 million. If you can't afford the now assessed property taxes they're having to sell, right? Instead of if they can't cover that difference now.
That's exactly right. And those houses, and particularly in the beach communities, are great homes to keep within the family, either for use, as a vacation home, or as renting it out. It could be a good continuing income stream because they're in high demand. And so, the allowing children the ability to keep that, or at least giving them the option, is important. Unfortunately, what is going to happen now is, as you mentioned, children are going to get priced out because they're not going to be able to afford the property tax, and the rents that they're going to be able to command are just not going to be able to keep up with the property tax. So they're going to be forced to sell a very good asset and investment that you worked hard to obtain and keep up all these years. So that's the bad part of Prop 19, is that it's no longer, there can no longer be a property tax savings. Proposition 58 was the old law that allowed for that. And you used to be able to file a form with the tax assessor's office. You cannot do that anymore as of February 16th of this year. So any transfers, whether you're giving it to your children now while you're still alive, or it's after you've passed away, they will not be able to file those forms. And so they will not be able to get that special exclusion or exemption. The good part of Prop 19, however, might be helpful for you if you're considering selling your primary residence and moving somewhere else in the state of California. The previous law was very limited in the ability of people to move within California and take their Prop 13 property tax base with them. There was the Prop 60, Prop 90 were the old propositions that allowed, on some limited basis, ability to do that. For example, sell your home and then maybe move up to the Bay Area because your children now live up there and you want to live closer, or vice versa. And you could, in some circumstances, be able to take your Prop 13 property tax base with you to the new property. But it was very limited because it depended on whether the counties were going to be allowing for that, number one. And you can only do it one time, even when you could do it. However, Prop 19 is now allowing for people to move and take their property tax and use it as a tax break. And they're not transferring your property tax to the new property. For example, if you're paying $10,000 in property tax a year, and that's your Prop 13 property tax, and you move to a new home in the Bay Area, you're not going to pay $10,000 in property tax for the new home in the Bay Area. However, you're also not going to pay the property tax that you would have paid for the new home in the Bay Area. You're going to get a discount. And that's the good part of Prop 19. And that affects people in a certain class. And it's people 55 and older, or they're disabled, or they've been displaced because of a natural disaster. So if you fall into that class, you're going to be able to move up to 3 times anywhere you want in the state of California and be able to retain a discount on your property tax. So that's the helpful part for some of our clients.
So just to reiterate what you're saying, the previous prop allowed people to move once and transfer their tax. Now it's allowing 3 times. So someone, for example, who the market's great right now, they're a little hesitant to sell because they have plans of moving in 3 years and they want to be able to transfer that when they move and retire. This would now allow them to sell now if they wanted to. They could move now, and then whenever they decide where they want to end up for retirement, they could move again in years from now.
That's right. That's exactly right. So, but they have to fall within that class of individuals, 55 and over, disabled, or they're a wildfire and natural disaster victim. This went into place April 1st. Okay. So Prop 19, the bad part went into effect February 16th. The good part went into effect April 1st. But interestingly, if you have sold your house or purchased your house prior to April 1st, then you can still take advantage of this good part of Prop 19, which, by the way, is called, legal terms, portability, but we call it the good part of Prop 19. Okay. So, for example, if you sold your home prior to April 1st and you haven't yet purchased the new home and you've kind of been in limbo looking around, you haven't missed the boat because you sold your home prior to April 1st. you haven't completed the transaction yet for the good part of Prop 19 because you haven't purchased the new primary residence yet, and now it's after April 1st. And it works in reverse as well. Now, if you have sold your primary home and purchased a new one all prior to April 1st, then yes, unfortunately, you missed out. But it's important to note that you may not have missed out if you're still in between homes, just because April 1st.
Maybe if you sold and you're leasing something, still kind of
That's
looking around but haven't purchased yet.
And it has to be a primary residence. So we're not talking about your vacation home or the rental units that you have. It's your primary residence.
Okay. And just to kind of give people an example, and Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but just for numbers wise, for an example, if you're 55 and older and you sold your home with an assessed value of 250,000 and you sold for 2 million, you could buy up, let's say you buy a new one for 3 million, your new assessed value would be 1.25. So they're taking that 250 from the home you sold and adding on $1 million from the difference. So rather than paying on a $3 million home, you'd be paying 1.25. Does that sound correct?
Yes, the difference in the purchase price of the new home and the
assessed value from the previous.
Correct. That okay. Well, that's right. So you can see that there's a discount. So you're not
a huge discount. I mean, 1.25 compared to 3 million is a big price difference for people who are kind of hesitant
sure.
as to if they want to sell, what they want to do, if they want to buy up, if they want to downsize. This will kind of allow for more options in that area.
And the discount obviously only works if the new property is more expensive,
right.
But the likelihood of the new property being more expensive is pretty good, given how much real estate's appreciated in the state of California. Mm-hmm. So it would be a kind of rare situation, I think, that the new property would be equal value or less in that situation. So
right. I know just in my business, there's people that I speak to that are hesitant, not knowing everything that went into this prop, of not wanting to sell solely based on the idea that they would be paying so much more if they purchased up. Now, again, that's if you're 55 and older, but for anyone 55 and older, it allows you to sell your property that is most likely less than what you would be buying up to.
Yeah, that's right. So Prop 19 can be helpful for you moving forward, as we see. But what about those people that are sitting here watching the video today and saying, well, geez, I just didn't know enough to look at any potential solutions, or I just didn't even really know enough about this law to realize how much it might affect me or my children. Is there anything that I can do now? Or Kevin, you mentioned this February 16th date. So are we out of luck? I get that question a lot from professionals like you, Jessica, to other clients of ours, to new people calling in our office. And happy to report, if you thought that you missed the boat, you didn't. There's still opportunities to plan, and there's still opportunities to make an end run around Prop 19.
So this would be like Plan B for anybody who didn't get paperwork in before that February date.
That's right. And a lot of people didn't because there wasn't a lot of time. Now, this proposition passed in November and became official in December when the votes were all counted and certified. So that left a very short period of time. And of course, it all happens around the end of the year and changing the holiday, and we had an election. So we had a pandemic, lots of things diverting attention, and there wasn't a lot of information being disseminated about it. So a lot of people did miss that February 16th date. So if you're one of those, then we're looking at what we call Plan B options. Now, the ones that came before obviously were Plan A options. Plan A options are on a pause right now, and I'll explain what I mean by that. But Plan A options were things that we could put in place immediately and put together and oftentimes special trusts and file paperwork with the recorder's office and tax assessor's office and finalize those transactions and take advantage of the old law before it went away. So that was Plan A, and that worked for a lot of our clients and a lot of people that were able to take advantage of it. And that will always be the best way, but unfortunately it's on pause. But now there is still Plan B that we can pursue that will still allow you to pass down your property. And we'll use the example, maybe it's a beach house, a house in Manhattan Beach, and you've been renting it out, or you're living in it, whatever, but you want to leave it to your kids because it'll be a great investment. You can still do that and then prevent the property tax reassessment that Prop 19, the bad part of Prop 19
Right.
will have, by following this new Plan B that we have. The difference between Plan A and Plan B is that Plan B takes longer to put into effect, and it's a little bit more complicated. So unfortunately, Plan A is going to be the best. It was the quickest. We were able to do things in a week when we got down to the wire. But Plan B will take a longer time, and thus we're encouraging our clients that didn't make that February 16th deadline to get the process started with Plan B, because it is going to take a while to put it into effect. So that's the good news, is that you can still there's still options to take advantage in that situation.
Okay.
Now, I said that Plan A is on pause, and the importance of that is that it could get resurrected if the proposal before the state legislature gets passed and goes through. State Senator Bates from Orange County submitted a bill. It's Senate Bill 668. You can look it up online. And what it's seeking to do is modify the implementation of Proposition 19, and moving the start date from February 16th, 2021 to the same date, 2023, and in effect giving people another 2 years to assess, what they're going to do, how this proposition affects them, and what sort of plans they want to do to protect. And if that passes, then that will unpause Plan A, and we'll be able to move forward with Plan A for all those clients that weren't able to do it earlier. It'll be back on the table.
So since we don't know what is happening with Plan A, if someone wants to go ahead and start with Plan B, would it be the same paperwork if Plan A changed for someone to go ahead and get started now to start with the Plan B? And if it changed, you already have the information that you would need from them? Is that kind of how it would work?
Great question, Jessica. And yes, and that's exactly what we're encouraging.
Okay.
Because Plan B has a certain time clock, it's a long process.
Right.
We would encourage that to get started sooner rather than later. The good part is that if we are in the middle of Plan B and we find out that the law has been modified and we can do Plan A, we can pivot and change and go back to Plan A. We have all the information that we need. We can make that transition pretty seamlessly. So there's no time or effort lost in pursuing Plan B if we're able to move to Plan A because the law has been amended. And then conversely, if the law doesn't work out and it dies in committee or doesn't get passed, then you already have started down the road on Plan B and gotten that process started so that it can be completed sooner. So that it could be in place for when your kids, children, or grandchildren actually inherit.
Okay, so I have a scenario for you now. Speaking of the Plan B, since that's what's in effect, if Plan A changes, great, but Plan B, I know people down here who own 3 properties. They bought them investments when they were very young. Real estate was a good investment, and they plan on leaving 1 to each kid. They did not get paperwork through. They still have the properties. If they start on Plan B, how does that work? Does the property actually transfer now, or it's when they pass, it transfers? It's just that they get the paperwork in so that it allows them to keep that tax basis. How does that work?
That's a great question, and there's a number of different things and more information really specifically to work with those clients to get them the result that they want. But some things to think about in that scenario, number one, if they're renting those properties, do they want to keep the rents for themselves while they're alive? A lot of people do. They rely on it as income, or they just, they like that. How many children are there? Who do they want to ultimately inherit? And we have to discuss that. What sort of liabilities do all parties have in their personal lives, both kids and parents? And that will really drive how the strategies that we're putting together for Plan B. Plan B is like a big overarching idea. A part of Plan B, there's a lot of specific tools and strategies that go along with that. Suffice to say, we could have a situation for that that family that you're talking about, where the parents would be able to still retain the rent and amounts that they would want while they were alive. There would be some transference of property during their life to their children. Um, that is part of the process. However, it would be done in a way that would not trigger a property tax reassessment while they're alive. So in essence, they'll be able to retain the income that they enjoy while still being able to transfer during their life to their children these properties, but without triggering the property tax reassessment. So the strategy is different than simply saying, hey, we're going to go to the recorder's office and we're going to give Johnny and Susie the house, and by recording a quitclaim deed and transferring it to ourselves to them. If they did that, then of course that triggers a property tax reassessment. They've completely given over ownership. They're not entitled to any of the rents, and it's subjected to all of their kids' personal liabilities. So if one of them got sued or divorced, then they can lose that house and investment. That's if you do it the real quick and easy way of the quitclaim deed. Plan B is a much more comprehensive strategy that avoids those complications.
Okay. Okay. And I'm just going to reiterate this for anybody who watches these videos, because I know a lot of people who see my videos might be under that 55 years of age. Me and Kevin are here really just to help you guys. Real estate is a great investment within the family. If you're watching this video and maybe this doesn't necessarily affect you directly, it could affect you indirectly through inheriting properties, or maybe you have a grandparent that probably won't see this video, or an aunt or an uncle. Like Kevin said, there's a lot of people, the time frame of when this proposition passed to when you actually had to get your stuff was very quick, and there's a lot of people who, one, just didn't understand it fully, or two, like when I spoke to Kevin earlier this year, he was completely slammed with people getting stuff in. So I know people who just couldn't find attorneys and get it through in time. So I always ask you to share these videos with people that you know, whether it's family or friends, because we're really here just to help in any way that we can. We wouldn't want anyone to have to sell real estate based on this or lose it when it's family real estate. So please share these videos, because there's a lot of people who could probably benefit from it that just aren't informed and don't have someone like Kevin thoroughly explaining it and here to help. Kevin does a Zoom. Now that everything's on Zoom, you can reach him if you're not in the OC, you can reach him through Zoom. He's now back in the office meeting with people in person. So please use both of us if you have questions, or if you are in a situation that maybe Plan B would work for you. Start this process now. I'm going to let you keep going with that, but I just wanted to throw that in for anybody watching this.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree with that. The best way that we can serve our communities and our clients is just by getting information out there, because life's overwhelmed with information, never mind on this specific topic. And you're completely right, Jessica. A lot of people missed opportunities because they just didn't know what they didn't know, or there was a belief that, oh, this doesn't affect me right now because I'm 40 or I'm 45 or 50 and my kids are a lot younger, and how am I supposed to know what they want to do with the property? That I got that question a lot. It's like, well, what if we don't know what the kids want to do? Well, that encourages a conversation that maybe needed to be had, or you didn't want to have, or just yet, but it was a good opportunity. Plus, the way we explained it with clients is that looking at these solutions to Proposition 19 just allowed your children or grandchildren the opportunity in the future. Whereas they didn't have to get tied to a specific result now. You're just giving them the opportunity. So yeah, maybe down the road, after they inherit, they end up selling the property. But at least you gave them the opportunity to assess the situation and make a good financial decision, rather than being forced into having to make a decision because of a law.
Mm-hmm.
So
now, can I ask you one more question to clear up? If someone is transferring a property to a child and they're then going to move in as their main residence, how does that work, rather than keeping it as a investment property or a rental or just within the family? If they move in as their primary residence, is it the same?
The child moves in, or
Yes.
it depend. Of course, you can have your children move in with you, and that's not uncommon.
I
For
mean, once it's inherited, if parents pass away, the child inherits it. If it's their primary residence, does it still get reassessed like it would if it was an investment property?
Most likely, it will. Under the bad part of Proposition 19, it did away for all other types of property other than your primary residence. It will trigger a reassessment when your child or grandchild inherits. For your primary residence, it might not trigger a full reassessment, but it would trigger a partial reassessment because they put some exemptions in the law, and that is an exemption number is $1 million. So that's and how it works is that you look at your assessed value, the value that's on your property tax bill when you look at it, and it says assessed land value plus improvements, and that final number is your assessed tax value. That number plus $1 million is what the exemption is for. So if the value of your property is above that, then the amount above would be tacked on and increase the assessed value. So if we just use some examples on numbers, let's say your assessed value is $500,000, your house is worth $1.5 million now, then today, then if your child inherited and moved in, then there would be no reassessment because the value 1.5 is equal to 500,000 plus the 1 million exemption. So that works well. However, if your house is more than that, so another example, and quite easy in the beach communities, well, now that the home that you purchased of $500,000 is now worth $3 million.
Right. The prices have shot up so fast here.
So now that difference is going to be considerable. So now $3 million is $1.5 million over where we were, and so now the new the assessed land value is going to be $2 million. So the child moving into the house is going to see a reassessment from the assessed value of 500,000 to 2 million. So that will be a big jump in the property tax.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, property tax is on average 1.1% of the assessed value of the home. So the fact that the child moves in and claims it as a primary residence and say, aha, there's some exception in Prop 19, isn't going to save them any money.
Mm-hmm.
It will, sure, they would experience a bigger reassessment if it wasn't the primary home and it was the second home or vacation home, but they're still going to get a reassessment. So that's not going to necessarily save them. And keep in mind, it's the primary residence the parent has to be living in at the time that they died. So it's not that, oh, we've relocated and we've kept the home in Manhattan Beach, right, and then we died, and then Johnny moves into the Manhattan Beach home and claims that it's his primary residence. There's no special exception there because it wasn't mom and dad's primary residence at the time of their death.
Okay. So now if we're going to use this family with 3 properties, right, and they're planning on giving them to their kids. For anybody in this situation that's going to be affected by the bad part of Prop 19, is there any reason why you would tell someone not to go ahead and start with the Plan B and leave the properties as is? Or would you recommend that everybody starts with this in order to get this through for children to be able to inherit these properties without that assessed value? Is there any reason why somebody wouldn't want to do this?
The number one reason why they might not want to do it is that they've gotten a 100% expressed statement and belief and intent from their kids that, look, mom and dad, we are not keeping these houses at all. We're going to 100% sell these after you pass away. We really appreciate it that you want to leave it to us, but we are going to sell these properties. So if that's the case, then Proposition 19 is going to be a non-factor in your planning for the next generation, because they've already told you that there's no way that they're going to keep it. So for those people, we put them on the side and tell them that straight up, that this isn't going to work. However, for most other situations, we really are encouraging people to get started on the Plan B planning, because we have to assume that the current law that's in effect now that started February 16th is just going to stay in place. Yes, there's this Hail Mary that's out there that may come to pass, but my job is to help prepare clients for the worst situation, plan for the worst, hope for the best. And if we're getting the ball rolling, then we're already down the road. And of course, if something happens in the meantime, while we're waiting for this new law to pan out, then you already have some protections in place, which will be important.
Okay. Now, do you mind just bullet pointing the good part one more time before we log off? So for anybody who is just wants a recap of this, the positive part to Prop 19, how is this going to affect you in the good way? Can you just go through and bullet point that one more time?
Sure. In summary, there's a lot of information here. Totally understand it. It can be a bit overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
But the positive part of Prop 19 is if you are 55 and older, or you are disabled, or you are also been kicked out of your house or lost your house because of a wildfire or natural disaster, then you can move up to 3 times in your lifetime and take your Prop 13 tax base and apply it as a discount towards your new tax rate. So the good part is you get a property tax discount if you're in that group and you want to move, and you can utilize that up to 3 times. Mm-hmm. Bad part again is that property taxes are going to go up for your children or grandchildren when they inherit your property. For all non-primary residence properties, any type. And then even for primary residents, there's only going to be a very small, narrow circumstance where there will be a property tax reassessment. Most likely there will be a impactful partial reassessment.
Perfect. So I will link Kevin's information as well in whatever form I send this video out. Like I said, we're here to help you guys. Real estate is such a great asset to have within the family, and there's no reason not to do something if it's going to affect you negatively, if there's ways that you can avoid this. So thank you, Kevin, so much for getting on here and explaining this. Like I said, we both kind of talked about this, just happened so quickly. One, not everybody knew exactly how it was going to affect them. And just didn't have time to get everything in. If you're a child that maybe you might be inheriting property, please share this video with your parents, with your grandparents, with any family who have property that they plan on passing down. The information out there can get kind of convoluted and it's hard to understand everything. We're both here to help. And like I said, I will link Kevin's information as well. And he's available for Zoom or in person. He's a really, really great attorney that deals with this, and I've reached out to him on things before. And so, Kevin, thank you so much again for hopping on here.
More than welcome. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.